On June 1st, 1921, the Tulsa, Oklahoma neighborhood known as Greenwood was looted and burned to the ground by a white mob. 35 city blocks were destroyed, and 300 people are believed to have lost their lives. 2 days earlier, an encounter between a black man and a white woman in a downtown elevator sparked a confrontation between whites and blacks, which resulted in the destruction of one of the nation's most successful black neighborhoods, famously known as Black Wall Street. As we approached the 100th anniversary of the Massacre, we wanted to meet and hear the voices of those who live and work in the Greenwood neighborhood. With that, we present Greenwood, Here and Now.
All right, so joining us now is Mr. Freeman Culver, somebody who really is ingratiated in the community of Greenwood tremendously, doing work with the Chamber of Commerce. Freeman, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm still learning.
There you go, man. Absolutely. And you know, the 100th anniversary is coming up. Is what are sort of the main things that you look out to as you know, sticking out as some of the main events on Greenwood during that time?
Well, you know, this is kind of a pilgrimage for the descendants of those that was affected by the race massacre. So I just look to meet all of their families and just welcome them, open these doors of these historic buildings and let them see the art exhibits we have, let them meet the business owners that we have, let them get the best tour in the city of Tulsa that we have. And we just really want to welcome everyone to this historic Black Wall Street area.
Yeah, and with that being said, I bet you have a busy couple weeks ahead of you.
Oh yeah. Phone just keep hanging off. Just keep ringing. And plus we're doing a roof construction job on a building that's finally going through, and so construction. Getting ready for all this tourism, the John Legend concert, all this going on. Just very excited.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. Obviously, you know, the busyness is a factor in this, but the excitement levels must be, vibrant there. Can you like feel it in the streets? You know, when you're walking around in Greenwood, are people getting hyped up for this?
Oh yes, They're excited. They're just hanging out. They're just asking questions, coming down here. Man, asking what we're gonna do. Even though the calendars out there, they're asking people every day, what's gonna happen down here? Even though everything's posted, they keep asking, what's gonna happen down here? You know, and so just like a kid in the candy store.
I don't doubt it, man. You know, and what does it mean to you as somebody who's been there for so long to sort of see this excitement level? Obviously, in a community where one of the main things it's known for is that tragedy, that race massacre. You know, what is it like for you to see this exciting moment?
I'm excited to see the people come and show reverence for the history, but I'm not celebrating a massacre. You know, I would never do that. But I'm just glad that, you know, it's getting the attention that it deserves. And because next year is the true celebration. That's when the people came together and rebuilt the community without support from the city or the state. They did it by themselves. And so I'm just excited for people to learn this history, because, you know, you got some states that are trying to withhold this history from being taught. So if people can come here and go on a tour that we have, they will learn the history unfiltered, and they'll be able to pass it down to their kids, and their kids will grow up in a light years ahead of them when it comes to diversity and equity.
Right, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask you too. Is you know, when you look at sort of this push for education on the Greenwood and Tulsa Race Massacre, what are your thoughts on that? You know, just some of the new movements, whether it's documentaries that are being done by NBA players or news pieces from, you know, prominent news sources. What are your thoughts on just seeing, you know, this community, your community, you know, be the history be shown all over the world? It seems like.
I'm excited by everyone that's doing a documentary or article, and we make sure on our social media to post everything, but because all voices need to be heard. But this is why we have I know the history, but all my tour guides, I want them to be residents, to be born here, and I think that history is something that needs to be heard, from the local residents, and a lot of the residents they say, one thing that's not being focused on is that it wasn't just a historic site. People actually had fun down on Greenwood. It was like a mini Las Vegas at one time. And so a lot of documentaries don't present that, but our tour guides are able to. So, but we are excited to have everyone to promote the history that we have.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you just brought up there. I don't know how much, to what extent you know about it, but man, what do you tell us a little bit more about this mini Las Vegas, aspect of things? Just from what you've heard on some of these tour guides and whatnot.
For all of these businesses that you had before the massacre, 192 of them was registered with the Negro City Directories. After the massacre, 242 of them was registered with the city. And so for every, traditional business, haberdashery, a salon or restaurant or grocery store, you had 2 or 3 night businesses, meaning nightclubs, where people had fun in the evening and they dressed up. And so many of those pictures you see people dressed up, they're not just getting ready to go to church. Many of them, it was a nightlife scene down here on Greenwood. And so you hear all of that on my tours. You hear the culture, you learn about the culture, you learn about the tragedy, but you learn about the golden age of Greenwood, where people really had fun here and was able to experience it and grow up here. We learn about how before every home football game, Booker T. Washington High School band would come down here on the 100 North block and do a pep rally all the way to the stadium. Stuff like that, needs to continue now.
That is so awesome to hear that side of things. And when it comes to like looking around and just your own personal perspective, for you to be able to be running, sort of the show down there in terms of the Chamber of Commerce, what sort of pride does that give you as somebody who's been there, like I said, for so long, to be able to do it in the centennial year?
Well, I guess it was meant to be because, I started out as a volunteer. I just went around and cleaned up the area, picked up trash, and I am educated, highly educated. And so they didn't know that, but when they found out that I was willing to do some of the grunt work and I was highly educated, they invited me to the board. And it wasn't less than a year and a half, I became president. And so I didn't know I would be a leader during this centennial, but things happen for a reason, because I really truly think this is the last stand. If we get all this attention, and if under my leadership we're not able to raise enough funds to preserve these buildings, then I just think something wrong. As much attention as Greenwood is getting, we should have an endowment. We should be able to preserve these buildings for the next 100 years. And so I'm just excited that we're getting attention, but I just think we need to use this as momentum to get the resources that Greenwood deserves to have.
And what is, with that being said, what's your sort of confidence level with that these buildings will be able to be preserved for those 100 years? Or is there any sort of skepticism from you?
Well, like I said, this is the last stand, and I'm in it to win it, but I won't be here forever. And so I'm really trying. We wrote the National Registry application soon. This will be historical. That will protect the buildings. I'm really trying to raise funds for the endowment. We're trying to do a tax credit on the property. I know my efforts will preserve these buildings for the next 20, 25 years. They'll be fine. But after that, I really think we need an endowment. We need someone to smile on Greenwood and set up an endowment so that this history will be there forever. Because there are so many new developments around it, and that's great. But when you have all these new developments, I'm talking about 5 cranes in downtown Tulsa, which is Greenwood District. 5 in a small town like this.
Wow.
And when you have so many new developments, it's going to raise the property taxes And that's when justification comes in. And so I'm praying and hoping that we can get endowments so that the property taxes, the assessments, maintenance of the buildings can be taken care of for the next 100 years, so that my children and their children can enjoy these buildings, historic buildings, which are the testaments of time of how important Greenwood was.
Yeah, and that's fascinating too. And I'm going to go back to a point you made earlier, right? You talked about the real celebration sort of will come the year after, because that's when the citizens of Greenwood, they rebuilt the city without any help. Okay, fast forward 101 years later. Okay, what sort of help have you guys been getting from the local governments and just local people around Tulsa?
Well, all I can do is speak for myself and the organization I run. I haven't got any help from the city of Tulsa or from philanthropists in Tulsa. None. And so I don't know if it's a conspiracy or anything, but even in Oklahoma City, they will help us. I've had philanthropists in Oklahoma City help us. I've had people outside of Tulsa help us. The National Park Service helped us with a $500,000 grant. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if people repeat history, but I just know that in order for this to be here for the next 100 years, we need real help. We need an endowment, and it needs to be people that's from Tulsa. I know they love Tulsa. I know Tulsa loves Greenwood, but I need to feel the love, and this Greenwood proper and these historic buildings need to feel the love too.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think that, with all that being said, with all the attention, obviously, that Greenwood's going to be getting this year, and for many years, I believe, with, all the education movements about the Greenwood district, you would think that the city would be all over that, wouldn't you?
Yep, you would think. Like I tell people, it's good people in the city, but the systematic approach is not working.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, absolutely, Mr. Culver. And, I know you are a tremendously busy guy, and we thank you for, doing this interview with us today, sir. Is there anything else that you want to plug before we punch out here?
Nah, thank you for the interview. And we really appreciate you. And if people really want to help, they could Google Rebuild Greenwood GoFundMe. Rebuild Greenwood GoFundMe. And that will help.
Absolutely, Mr. Culver.
Whatever they can do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Rebuild Greenwood GoFundMe. Thank you so much, Freeman. And you go enjoy your day, and you have a good one, man.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Greenwood Here and Now is produced by the O'Collie Media Group. Thank you for listening.